Today we're talking about the Season 7 Conquest changes. We don't have all of them yet, but we have a lot of them. We have a lot to go through in this one, so let's get into it. Quick disclaimer in advance, apologies if it's a little bit louder in the background. It's early in the morning than usual, so a lot of people are up and about. We're gonna look at the changes, we're gonna read through this, and I'm gonna, of course, give my opinion and tell you what I think this will do to the meta overall. The state of Conquest and moving forward. Conquest is the primary competitive mode in Smite. As a competitive mode, the gameplay on this map is always evolving. This can come from player decisions and established metagames or developer-driven changes. At the beginning of every season, we always evaluate the Conquest map and look for ways to make meaningful changes that our players will appreciate. The approach we take to do this revolves around the concept of problem solving. We do not aim to add frivolous changes for the sake of change. Instead, we seek out specific meta issues, role issues, or map interactions that the player base seems to dislike. After identifying the problems, we look for solutions that will continue to provide players with the most flexibility in their path to success. One of the defining features of the Conquest map and the MOBA genre is flexibility. Team roles and item building are specifically designed to make player choice a powerful force. This results in some unpredictability, but that is yet another draw to the mobile game. No two matches play out in exactly the same way. I very much agree with this stance, by the way. That's why many other genres don't interest me in the same way. We decided not to implement some of the community's more rigid suggestions. Changes actually do streamline the process more that everyone has the same, so I'm not quite sure where this statement comes from. Also, they specifically implemented things like blessings to make things more streamlined and more rigid, so not quite sure this idea is coming from in the context of this, but let's move on. Conquest stat review. The debate about which mode is the best is a constant discussion in the Smite community. This is an especially difficult scenario because even in the data, different models excel at different things. Even in the data, different models excel at different things. Smite's success stems from the game's variety. We provide a wide range of gods and modes so that we can appeal to a large audience. Every mode is important, but some are more important depending on how you look at it. Here's some interesting stats about Conquest. Conquest is the most played game mode in Smite when sorted by actual in-game playtime. Conquest is the third most played mode when sorted by unique players, with Joust being at number 1 and Arena being at number 2. This means that Conquest is played by a slightly smaller pool of total people, but those tend to play Smite by match count is, in my opinion, Ajax's opinion, the least accurate way to measure the importance of modes, and using this stat in official messaging has contributed to confusion. This stat is useful for measuring things within a game mode, each god's match count within Conquest for god popularity and balance reasons, for example. I don't know, like, yes, but also no. I think both stats have its value. Of course, the mode that is played by the most people has very high relevance too, and that explains why Joust is getting another map overhaul. But of course, Conquest having most play time also makes it very relevant, but it's also because the mode generally goes longer, but that also means that you will have less players queuing up at the same time because there's still another game. Yeah, you can look at it in many different ways. It doesn't really matter to me. I think the third factor here would be matches played in each particular mode. It comes down to they have 3 popular modes. That's it. Looking back at Season 6 Conquest. The current Conquest map was first introduced in Update 5.1, where a complete art and layout update was done. This iteration feels like the strongest version of Conquest ever designed, so the team has been carefully updating it throughout the last 2 years. I would say it's the most balanced design we've had so far. If it's the strongest, the most interesting one, it's another conversation. I still have a feeling it's gonna change in Season 8, but well. Update 6.1 brought you the following major features: Totem of Coup, Primal, Fury, and Only Fury. We don't really need to discuss that, you guys know what that is. Color balance and quality of life adjustments led to a great start to the season. These features were designed to fix certain problems, and players appreciated that approach. Throughout Season 6, the meta changed often, resulting in some crazy class and role position changes. As a team, we felt good about the amount of optimization players were able to do to the map. This shows that our core goals of mobile design, flexibility and player choice, were well represented on the map. We feel that Seasons 5 and 6 were some of the best ever for the Conquest mode. Generally speaking, I would agree with that. Generally speaking, not for everyone. The wider map, lower XP sharing, and more meaningful objectives have allowed the map's competitive nature to flourish. However, the best way to continue improving this mode is to be honest with ourselves about its problems and negative experiences. Conquest Season 7 changes. Flexibility and player choice are great, but they can lead to some dangerous situations if left unchecked. Even in representing our core design goals, extreme highs can be as dangerous to player experience as extreme lows. As the season progressed, we reached an invade meta, as well as some other role balance concerns. Addressing these issues is the primary driver for our Season 7 changes. Problems to solve. Invade meta. Early invades have a major problem. They break the intended pacing of a match. The strategy immediately raises the stakes, causing wins or losses to be determined too early. This generally results in a stressful experience that feels more influenced by randomness rather than skill. Jungle role and mid role feeling less impactful than other roles. Previous changes to the map combined with meta shifts throughout the year have caused this feeling. Junglers were intentionally nerfed on a few occasions due to their ability to snowball a game. A few occasions, yes, quite a few. Mid laners have been sharing more and more farm to the rest of their team to adapt to the meta of grouping around in their lane. Although these issues resulted from intended shifts, a new season is always a good time to evaluate roles and attempt to make them all feel equally important to the outcome of a match. I gotta say, I see the point of the triple sharing in middle being frustrating for everyone involved, not just for the mid laner. This is not like when there are 3 people in mid, that means that 3 people are kind of losing out on something, because even the support's not supposed to be with 2 other people. I don't see it from the perspective of mages actually performing pretty well in the current meta with the Doom Op start, so a bit different from what's described here, I would say. Dual lane, not at all resembling the support ADC dual lane. Oh, by the way, they've already mentioned somewhere else that they want to change mage items though, so that will kind of affect that in a way. I guess when Doom Op is nerfed, then this situation will be different as well or something. Or CDR boots, we'll see. Okay, dual lane. Smite is designed to encourage more rotation, team fighting, and jungling in the early game for all roles. Strongly expect there to be a viable dual lane in a MOBA, so as pros have continued to shift guard and role positions into an unrecognizable state, we will be introducing changes that encourage a return to more familiar territory. Also something that I think most people can agree with, that dual lane isn't really a dual lane, it's an ADC farming lane. Strange thing is that a lot of ADC players still seem to feel like they get the short end of the stick here. As a jungle main, I will just nod and smile, and you can make your own interpretation of that. Last season, on the other hand, ADC was struggling. Solo laners can't solo kill each other. Solo lane this year was as impactful as ever due to the addition of the totem. The problem was that many players, especially on the high end, found that this lane had very little room to flex your skills. Very few solo kills occurred in the early game, resulting in a less exciting experience. But we get to that one, but like part of that reason is on the one hand being like super strong, having a super strong Warrior's Blessing. On the other hand, the double pot rush that basically everyone does between getting Chalice and getting pots just to survive. With our problems identified and thus our goals set, we can start enacting meaningful changes to the map in order to solve these problems. And here we go. New consumable, not relic. Will not be upgraded to Fist of the Gods, but Hand of the Gods is back. Is that a good thing? We'll find out. The Jungle Clear relic is making a return, but this time as a consumable along with some key functionality changes. Problem is being targeted, invade meta. The goal of this item is to give all roles extra protection against invades. Emphasis all roles. With this item, they can opt to have safer or quicker early jungle clear instead of additional potions. This consumable deals damage to all jungle monsters in a small area around you. You can only carry one of this consumable at a time. This damage effect does not damage enemy camps or jungle bosses, so no Fire Giant, no Gold Fury, but it is increased by Assassin's Blessing. The damage dealt is a flat amount that does not scale. This item costs 1. Yeah, we should go over them now. First of all, with everyone being able to build this, and there will be other changes later that play into this, it's very likely you will not just see this on the jungle early game. It's very likely that you will see this on multiple roles, clearing their, well, own camp more quicker, make it easier, make it less painful for them. Additionally, technically, I don't know how much of a change Assassin's Blessing does to this. This would allow supports to jungle better, even if you're picking a less jungly support, by just, you know, packing some Hand of the Gods whenever they leave base, or something. But it's also a constant expense, which can be... What I'm wondering about is if we'll see basically everyone except the ADC pick up one Hand of the Gods at the start of the game and clear their own jungle. Interesting conversation that we'll look into more later. So far, I'm not convinced because this item is extremely cheap with 100 gold. It could be very impactful in a strange way, and there are some other changes that will facilitate picking it up on other roles as well. And one of them is this. New starter relic, Vision Shard. Each player's inactive relic slot, the one that cannot be upgraded until level 12, will now have the shard in that place. Activating this places a weak ward in the target location on a 120-second cooldown. So first of all, this is fantastic. A free ward at the start of the game that will teach players to put down wards. So I'm absolutely not against this. I'm absolutely for this all the way. I've been speaking about more vision forever. Even though it's a buff to Heimdall, really doesn't need a buff at the moment. I think this is a very good thing. We'll finally see wards across the map no matter what. And ADCs no longer have an excuse. And I'm going to slap my ADCs virtually if they don't place wards, even though they have that vision thing. Downside, of course, being that junglers will have a much harder time ganking anywhere. Problems being targeted. Invade meta. The goal of this item is to give players are less likely to fall victim to risky or aggressive ganks with the choice of warding, as it will be applied to all game modes. Very interesting as well. The first to a normal relic for free at level 12. It says can be though. It seems like you can also keep the vision shard for longer if you want to. The shard ward looks different and does not change with ward skins, has a smaller radius, lower duration, and provides no gold when killed. So a bit of a downside here for the enemy. You know, it doesn't even help really. I'm not sure if this ward is hidden. It doesn't say anything about that, but I'm assuming it will be, because otherwise it would be significantly weaker. And as such, it's like in many ways it's almost a buff. Like you have you get like a free ward and the enemy doesn't get anything from you for like a smaller radius. And yeah, it's just a base level of vision that you will have at all times, which generally speaking is great. I just wonder where the counterplay to that is so far, or if there will be anything else that's introduced that introduces counterplay somehow. League of Legends also has the counterpart to that, which is a sweeper relic, so to speak, and that allows you to clear out wards for a brief period of time. So yeah, maybe not quite thought through yet, I'm not sure, but we'll see. And another thing with this is that I forgot what I wanted to say. Well, it's meant to prevent the invade meta, but I'm not entirely sure if that's what it's going to end up being. I think it's going to just be a lane ward in most situations. I mean, especially in duo, you will have two. You could get a ward of your entire lane. And we'll see some other changes later that means that it's significantly easier to ward middle lane as well with this. So really, warding is going to be easier than ever overall. It's very, very interesting. Idea. New objective. Jungle Shrine. The Jungle Shrine is a new early game objective located in the area between Yellow Buff and Back Harpies. Problems being targeted. Jungler impact. The goal of this feature is to add more team-wide impact to the jungle role in the early game. Junglers can't be in every lane at the same time, but now the allies will feel their impact through these gifts of gold. We hope this has similar levels of success that the Totem of Ku had. This objective's gold reward grows each time your team, not the jungler, your team, clears a jungle camp, so it essentially has a variable respawn time and variable reward amount. I gotta talk some more here. This is very strange as an objective from what we know so far. I don't entirely understand this. The concept is simple. It's a thing that spawns and then you take it down, you get extra gold. I don't know if they also give XP. I don't know if the enemy can invade it, which would be scary. Because, you know, if your team has gathered for a long time and then the enemy invades it, you're gonna lose a lot. And I don't know how it's supposed to help the jungler impact. It seems that so far, the jungler has like 3 camps left to clear afterwards, like some small harpies. And then he goes and clears this. But what you get out of it is not something for the jungler. What you get out of it is a team-wide gold buff, like the team-wide Totem of Ku type of gold increase. And it's like, I don't know if it has anything else. They didn't say if there's another effect to it. But if just pushing gold into the game is a solution, it seems very off to me. It doesn't make the jungler really more impactful. It just pushes all roles equally and makes the jungler more of a farm bot for everyone else. And I think that's like the opposite of what a jungler wants to be. So I don't entirely understand this, and I feel like they're leaving out some crucial information with this particular objective on how exactly it will work for us to understand what the usefulness of this is and how exactly it will work, and also how this gold scales and everything. So can't really give a full opinion on this just yet. Next change. Yellow buff spawns earlier. This camp now spawns at 20 seconds instead of 23 seconds. Problems being targeted, invade, meta, jungler impact, mid impact. The goal of this feature is to make sure mid laners and sometimes jungler have enough time to clear the yellow buff before lane minions meet or harpies spawn. Certain mid jungle combinations would not possibly be able to kill the camp and still make it to mid lane before any minions are killed. Another one of those changes, they say they want to make the game more flexible and more interesting and less, everyone else is the same. But then they introduce this, which just forces everyone even more into starting exactly this one way. I thought they were going to go back to spawning all camps at the same time. But no, we're just getting speed earlier. So the junglers can rotate a bit earlier. And yeah, I guess. And that might be an annoyance in terms of timers for the solo lane. I'm not entirely sure when the Harpy spawn, but I think some players will be able to clear the speed buff so quickly that the Harpies may not have spawned. Not entirely sure from the top of my head, but I think that may be possible unless they change those numbers as well. And then they would have to rotate straight towards blue to not waste time, which would then mean they clear blue so quickly that the solo laner will not be able to get the XP from blue because they are still on their wave, which is just going to be annoying for everyone. So I don't entirely understand, like this change seems a little unfinished without context again. And yeah, and again, it just forces one meta more than before. And they say that it's to balance out mid and jungle, which I guess was the goal with most of these changes. But I don't know if that's exactly what they will be achieving here. Mid will definitely see more balance, and jungler will be faster, but the jungle pathing will be disrupted, making it then frustrating for the solo laner, and then it may either slow down the jungler anyways, or we're just going to deal with angry solo laners all the time. Next one. Mid-Harpy pathing and XP camp changes. I talked about this before, now we can see it here, and we have confirmation that the right side will not get this change, it's only on the left side, and there's more to it. Mid-Harpies on the Gold Fury side now have a very different jungle path that favors the home team mid laner. There's now an additional mid-Harpy camp so that each mid laner has their own. That means there's technically more XP in middle. If you get your jungler to go to middle lane early, you go speed to middle, which I could imagine. You go speed to middle, and then you either invade here, Or you could possibly go here and here, depending on how the enemy middle is doing. Like if the enemy middle jungle does the same, like if the enemy jungle is coming, then you contest their camp potentially, depending on who has a stronger early. So this is heavily going to favor early game comps. If not, then you go here, and then when the enemy mid laner goes over here, you just kill him for going to his camp, or otherwise you take that camp after, and then you take your own camp, and you got a bunch of XP here. I know that invade XP is reduced, so you lose a little bit here, but overall, it seems like it forces a very mid-heavy, very aggressive mid-heavy meta, which would heavily favor early game mages and early game assassins. Not sure how that is being solved. So, yeah. It's let's read about it. The goal of this feature is to increase the amount of farm the mid laner has access to and to make the lane slightly safer. Players are losing a path from R to K side, which will make certain rotations much more difficult. It also means that ganks on middle are difficult from there. The mid Harpy camp on Fire Giant side is not changing and will still be a contested neutral objective. So don't really say much. Yeah, cool. I like the layout change. I think it's interesting. And might make for some interesting ganks as well if you like leap over here and then gank from there without immobility or something. But overall, I see it just heavily pushing us back towards two people in middle lane to contest the enemy one in order to get all the middle camp XP, especially if everyone else can clear their own camps with the Hand of the Gods anyways. New XP camp near dual lane. Two of them, actually. You see here, up and down between the Gold Fury and the lane. Let's read about that. A new XP camp featuring a single Elder Harpy has been added to both the Order and Chaos side of the dual lane. Problems being targeted, dual lane isn't a dual lane. The goal of this feature is to encourage players to stay together on that side of the map by giving them more golden XP sources. These camps are positioned in the environment next to the purple camp. These are tanky, hard-hitting monsters that are cleared most easily by a group of 2 players or more. So I'm guessing similar to the oracles. Now, yes, there's a decent amount of objectives towards the dual side now. You have the purple buff, you have this camp, you have oracles that you can contest. So you can keep yourself busy there. At least until a certain point where the ADC will inevitably have enough lifesteal or something to be able to clear it on his own. But by that time, the support will probably be meant to be rotating anyways. I'm not sure if that's what's going to happen. I'm not sure if the support is actually going to stay there, or if we end up seeing the support in middle lane because of these changes, so that support can contest these Harpies, which are 2 and which are probably easier to clear, this and this and this, and then move over towards here with the jungler and try to take these camps out. Very hard to say this early, but I'm not entirely sure how this alone will encourage the support to stay in dual lane. But again, there are more changes coming that could affect that in other ways. Another change for duo specifically is the purple buff spawns earlier, at the same time as yellow. Purple buff now spawns at 20 seconds. Problems being targeted, dual lane isn't a dual lane. The goal of this change is to give the dual lane a big head start in safe golden XP. It should make it much less likely that dual lane loses this camp to enemies at the start of the game, and encourages 2 players to work together to clear in time for the minions to meet. Again, kind of forcing the meta there a little bit. I'm okay with this one because it means that super high pressure comps will not automatically win duo from getting the purple. It's something where I was thinking, like, would the jungler start there instead? Would there be any benefit to that? But probably not. It's probably really something where you will have Hand of the Gods on the support, and you will clear this quickly and then rotate straight to the lane. Depending on if you will actually need Hand of the Gods, because I think some comps will be able to clear that early anyways. Especially if you play like an unusual support, like a Naja or Saket, I think you might not even have that issue. So yeah, interesting again. I like this change overall. I don't know if it will do much overall outside of, impact the game as a whole much outside of every support gets their purple at the start of the game, really. But that's okay, that's fine. Health pots will no longer stack with Health Chalice. Problems being targeted, invade meta, solo laners can't solo each other. The goal of this change is to prevent tanky guards from bullying everyone in the early game. The ability to stack double heals has helped early invaders stay alive longer to cause more trouble. This excess healing makes solo laners much less likely to die early. This is a good change. Like I said, Warrior's Blessing and this double pot thing are kind of what makes this. So one of them is tackled here, and I think that is a good decision overall. It's not much to say about it. It will just make solo lane more interesting, and doesn't really matter all too much for other roles. Sometimes support, but that's interesting thought, by the way. With the chalice changes here and the ward, the free ward at the start of the game, is there still any reason to get Chalice of the Oracle? Is there more reason now that you can't double pot? I don't know. I don't think so. I think Chalice of the Oracle is probably not going to be very popular, but maybe. We'll see. Maybe someone finds a way somehow to make it useful. Also, it doesn't really say anything about if the Relic ward stacks with other wards, but I would assume it counts as a regular ward in terms of how many you can place. More balance changes. These changes might be equally important or impactful as some of the other features here, but they don't require as much explanation to understand. They all contribute to the problems and goals we have already stated and can be discussed in more detail in the future. And this is actually huge. I think it's very unfortunate that they didn't talk about this in detail here, because then we would really get a clearer picture of the meta than we do right now. But I can also understand why they didn't do that, because they want to keep something for the patch notes so we actually watch them. The effects that all 4 jungle buffs have on players are slightly adjusted. So, speed buff gets a bit of a buff, yeah. Is that what you're saying, James? Nice, good job. If not, and if the others are getting buffs, then I'm going to be very upset. Jungle camps are getting a 10 to 20% increase in health and protections. Why? Could be good, could be bad. Because, we'll skip ahead a little bit, blessings will also get adjustments. This may mean that jungle camps get more health and protections, but Assassin's Blessing does more damage against jungle camps, and therefore junglers have an easier time soloing camps, but everyone else has a harder time doing so, which kind of offsets the Hand of the God inclusion. Could be good, or it could just mean that junglers have to face a bigger suck for no reason. XP splitting changed from 20% to 25%. Really weird, because they initially said they wanted to discourage XP splitting, or like camp splitting, and now they're increasing it. Like, I have a vibe. I have a vibe here that somehow the jungler and the mid laner go back to the very old season state and start sharing everything again, because that's the most effective way to dominate the mid lane area and to get XP. But what do you know? Totem of Cool rewards will be slightly adjusted. I'm guessing this may have something to do with some of that going to the jungler thingo instead. And then Totem of Cool gives a little less gold, and it's more about the other effect. I don't know. And golden XP adjustments, which could mean that jungle camps get gold and XP increases along with their health and protection increases, and we're kind of going back more to the old state of jungle camps, which used to be the case. They used to give way more XP, I think slightly less gold actually, but they were also a lot more tanky. But Bumba's Mask also allowed you to deal more damage to them. So yeah, and then it says, and even more. It's very incomplete in terms of what this all implies, because it's really just half of the information here, I guess. In Season 7, we will strive to continue to improve the current Conquest map for competitive Smite players throughout the year. The design team will be looking forward to hearing feedback from players, Olympians, and pros. We'll work together with the Smite community to make Season 7 the best one yet. Be sure to tune in to Season 7 update show on January 8th at 3 p.m. Eastern Time to see these changes in-game and for more in-depth discussion. We'll see you on the battleground. There is a lot more coming in terms of changes. Hi-Rez has announced that throughout the next days, I'm assuming always in the middle of the night for me, they're going to release more of these type of posts. So that's what I'm going to be talking about. talking about the changes for Joust, for other things. I don't know exactly from the top of my head, but a lot of things around Season 7 that are coming up. Overall, I am happy that they made a lot of changes still, even though they keep the same map. They're still introducing interesting features that will change up the meta. So far, I am not sure if the meta is headed the way that they want it to be based on the changes that we have seen so far. We need to see the other changes to be certain about the entire impact of this, but I really hope that the other changes have factored in everything that I pointed out here, and that as a whole, when we see the entire picture, it will piece itself together and make more sense. So we'll need to see some changes to Assassin's Blessing and probably Speed Buff. We'll need to see some changes to Guardian's Blessing to make sure that the support has more reason to stay in solo. In duo, we need to see some changes to Warrior's Blessing so that solos can actually do more damage to each other in early games so they can actually fight. And we need to see changes to Mage's Blessing so that it actually becomes an item that people pick up again, though that may be solved through Doom Op changes anyways. We'll see about that. But yeah, overall, a lot to expect still. A lot that hopefully will be cleared up in terms of that new weird jungle camp thing, for example, that new gold camp or whatever. And when we know more, I'll of course discuss that. And with that, thank you guys very much for watching. If you're new to the channel, feel free to the sub button and maybe the bell. It helps me out. And other than that, see you for the next one tomorrow. And Happy New Year at this point for those of you who will be in the new year. I think that should be most of you shortly after this, at least. DukeSloth out.